Hey everybody, it's a four-gun guy. And today I thought what I would do is take a look at two different reticles on the two zero compromise scopes I'm using in competition. I had two of the same scope, then I tried something else, and then I came back to Zico. Well, when I came back to Zico, the reticle that I am used to was out of stock, and there was no estimation of the delivery time. So I found another one that had a different reticle with it. Now this is the MPCT 3X reticle. So it doesn't have a little tree above it, but it's a little different. And I thought what we would do today is let's look at those differences and see why I'm using which one on which rifle, because I have this one, this is the new one. I've got this one on my Centerfire rifle for a reason. And then I've got my original with the MCPT or MPCT2 reticle on my Voodoo 22 long rifle. And there's a reason that I kept that one on that. And we'll look at those reasons. So if you're ready to go, let's get to it. Let's talk briefly about the differences between these two reticles. This is the Impact 3X, this is the Impact 2. Let's start with the 2. I'll put this up on the screen so you can actually see it. And I love this reticle. In fact, if you saw my review of this scope, this was the first Zico I got, and I'll put that up here somewhere. I told you that one of the main factors of me choosing this scope over all the other tier 1 scopes was the reticle. I just loved it. When you look at it, the markings are very clear, and that's what I like about it. When you come down from the center dot, which is small enough that it doesn't cover the targets, down to that 1 mil mark on the elevation, there's really nothing there, right? You can see that there's just a 1 mil mark, and I'm looking at this other one to make sure I'm what I'm going to compare here. And then when you come down to the 2 mil mark, there's still a 1 mil horizontal markings, right? Plus or minus, left, right, and so forth on down the tree. So that's the Impact 2. Love it. And there's that one. Now, the Impact 3 is kind of a different animal, and I like this one as well. It's going to take some getting used to, I think, but I really do like it. Because on the Impact 3, what they did was, number one, you'll see they did not go all the way up the scope with the markings, right? They only go up to 1, 2, 3, 4 mils up. That's fine with me. They still kept that half mil mark, which I love on these scopes. Don't ask me why, I just love a half mil marking. But you'll notice the difference between these two, and now I'll put them up side by side, is that on the Impact 3, they're using these small circles at the 1 mil markings. Small circles there. And then they're using, if you look at the difference, let's go come down the reticle. Let's come down to, say, 3 mils below center line. You can see that what they've done between the two is they've kept those circles, but then it's just dots in between. Whereas on the Impact 2 at 3 mils below, it's a solid line with the hash marks on it, right? So while the Impact 3 initially looks busier, it's actually not busier. It's a much cleaner reticle. These circles might take a little getting used to, but I so far really like what I'm seeing when I look through the scope. So let's talk about what we might expect to see at different for different shooting circumstances. And we'll see this out in the field. So the reason I put the Impact 3X on my Centerfire is because generally speaking, we're shooting, well, not generally speaking, we're shooting at much longer distances, right? Our closest targets are 350 yards out to 1,100 yards. And I thought when I first mounted this that those circles, are they going to interfere with the target? Well, the answer is no, they're really not. They don't interfere with the target. And what I really was afraid of with these on the Voodoo 22 long rifle was that they'd start to cover things up, cover targets up. And I didn't want to have that busyness in there. So that's why I left the Impact 2 on the Voodoo, and I've got this on the Centerfire. Now, one other thing I want to talk about on the Impact 3 here is when you look at these circles, and I'll put this larger blow up here too, you can see that the distance between the diameter of that circle is 2/10, right, of a mil. So really what you're seeing here is you've got a 2, 4, 6, 8, and then 10 in the very center, but one edge of that circle is 0.9 and the other edge is 1.1. I don't know how I'm going to like this in a competition. I haven't shot this in a match yet, so we're going to see. It might take me a minute to think a little bit about what I'm really looking at when I'm looking at this. Because you know what I'm saying, right? You're used to just putting that hash mark on that target and you're done. Now it's going to be this circle that's going to kind of go on the target. And as I said, I'm just going to have to see how that looks. I don't know. But let's do this. Let's get out to the range and let's look through both of these at both 22 targets, 22 long rifle targets at the 22 range, and then the Centerfire targets at the Centerfire range. And let's just see what we see and see how these look. We're out at the range, and what I want to do is look at both these scopes, and I'm going to look, we're going to look at like 500, 650, maybe 800, and then out to 1,000. And let's see, now this is the Centerfire range, so we'll end up at the 22 range, but let's start with Centerfire. Let's look at the two scopes, the two reticles at those distances, and we'll go from there. All right, well, my sound is kind of messed up here, so I'm just going to override it. Now look, we're at 500 yards, and what I really wanted to point out here is that if you look at the 1 mil circle there that's on that smallest target, 2 targets to the right of the orange target, you know, it's really not covering up the target too badly. Now, if we start to come over to this other rack, it still looks like it's not really going to cover things up. Now, this is I believe I'm at maximum magnification, which I would not be in a match. I'd be out at like probably 15 power at the most in a match. So this is at 27 power. So I think we're looking good there. Now let's go out to 650 yards. And again, these are fairly, that rack on the left is a fairly good sized rack. But as you can see, I actually like the circle. It almost helps me center on the small orange target on the far right. And it's just something that I think I'm going to have to kind of get over, that I'm not seeing a hash mark there. Now we're at 700. We go out to 800. This is an IPSC target at 800 yards. I think that's a really good view. I'm really happy with how clean this reticle is. And by the way, how clear it is and how large the hash marks are, right? Now we're at 1,000 yards and this thing's picking it up very well. I have to tell you, I've looked through other scopes, tangent theta for one, and that reticle was very dim, I would say. The hash marks aren't as thick. So I really like how this reticle is looking at high power and long range. Well, here we are again at 500 yards with the Impact 2 reticle. And again, you know, it's just a different look. It's got the hash mark instead of the circles at the 1 mil markings. And again, this is a pretty clean reticle. I chose this, I chose this scope because of this reticle, and I really do like it. It gives you that, you know, centered up feeling, right? When that hash mark is in the center of that target, you know you're there. So I really like the way this is looking at the 500 yard mark. Now let's move out to some of those other distances that we were talking about. Here we are at 650. Again, no covering of the target. Very clear, very clean, as I said before. And I really like the cleanliness of both these reticles. They're just not cluttered. Putting it on that small orange target, centered up. Center dot doesn't cover it, and neither does the Impact 3 center dot, by the way. They're both about the same center dot, I believe. So neither one should be covering the target up. All right, well, let's go out to 800 here. Again, clean, very clean. Nothing covering anything up. Love the reticle. And as I said earlier, it's very clear, right? And it's bold. That's a word for it, bold. Some of these other reticles, you have to zoom all the way in. And I know I'm zoomed all the way in here, but trust me, at 14, 15 power, it's still very clear. 1,000 yards looks really good. Let's go ahead and get to the 22 range now. Well, we're here at the 22 range, and I'm going to start with the Impact 3 reticle. And we'll just go like 50 yards, 75, 100, and we'll go out to, I think we go out to 300 or so here. So we'll do that and see what that looks like with those targets. Now at 300 yards, the 22 targets are pretty big, to be honest with you. So I don't think we're going to have that much issue. I'm interested in the closer in targets, the targets at 75 to say 150 yards. So let's see how those kind of targets compare with both these reticles. And let me just switch the camera around here. So this is the range. We've got targets all over. We've got a car out there. We've got the distant targets over here. We've got a berm out here, and then the 50-yard targets are in close in here. So let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, so here's 50 yards, and I am at 15 power on my Zico, and you can see that with the Impact 3 reticle, right at 15 power, that dot doesn't really do much. And this is about where I shoot, right? It's 15 power in these matches. And you can see that, you know, with these targets, nothing's covering anything up. It's actually looking pretty darn good. Let's go out to, I know this car over here is about 130, probably 130 yards. So let me get my parallax set in here. You can see the mirage today. It's unbelievably bad. Of course, it's summertime. It's about 102 degrees right now. And so here we are. Yeah, so look, those targets, very easy to see. And even if I were to zoom in on here, this is full power right here, guys. So this is full power. And let me just kind of adjust the parallax a little bit and get a little close, a little clearer. Yeah, that's not bad. And you can see those circles, they're not covering anything. So I'm really happy with that. Now, remember, I'm using this scope for my Centerfire, so I'm not using this for 22 matches. And here we are out at about 200, I want to say that target there's 250. 250 yards, that's full power. So again, if I back off to what I would generally be shooting here, which would be around 13 to 15 power, this is what all these targets are looking like. That's a nice reticle. I really do like this Impact 3 reticle. Let's go out to the berm here, kind of look at some targets out here, see if we can get some, kind of adjust the
parallax there a little better. Wow, that Mirage is really moving. I'm glad I'm not practicing 22 today, although I should, but I didn't bring any ammo with me. But there we go. That's a pretty small target right there, but still, no coverage. All right, let's go back to the Impact 2 reticle. Well, here's some, this is a bird, I think, or a little pig. Again, nothing's covering anything. These targets are pretty darn small. Some of these targets are like 3-4 inches. Yeah, looking good, looking good. So if you were thinking about this for 22, I don't think that's a bad idea. All right, we're back at the Impact 2 reticle, and 50 yards. This is 15 power, like we were before, and you can see that again, it would just be the hash mark instead of the circle. There's that larger rack there. Let's go out to that car that we were looking at. Here's the car. A little parallax setting here. There we go. And again, I'm just used to this. Now this is the scope on my 22, so when I shoot these matches, this is the scope I'm using. So I'm using the hash marks. And again, very clear, very good. There's that 250 we were looking at earlier. Trying to get it in focus there. And that's a big target, as I said. I mean, look at that. That thing's about 1.2 mils wide at 250 yards. So, yeah. Spinner. Let's come over to the berm where we were earlier. Here we are at the berm. Again, 15 power. So, you know, I think I zoomed in on some of this stuff, but if I zoom into 27, you know, that's 27. Nothing's really getting covered up. Boy, that Mirage just won't let you focus. Yeah. And there's that smaller target we were looking at earlier. But I'd be out right about here. That's about 13, 15 power. And then here's those small targets. Again, that's probably a 3 or 4 inch target at, I don't know what that is, 120 yards, I think, something like that. There's that pig that we were looking at. Again, easy to pick up, easy to set on the reticle. And yeah, so there we go. Let's just do some final thoughts right here at the range.
Well, guys, I was really honestly thinking that there would be a pretty big difference in these reticles, and I didn't see it. I like each one. I don't think it's going to be hard for me to realize what scope I'm behind. The Centerfire is going to be the Impact 3. I like those circles at every mill. I really do like that. I thought that was going to kind of get in the way of things and kind of mess me up, but I actually like it. So I think either one of these scopes, either one of these reticles would be good for Centerfire or 22. So there you have it. Hey, I want to thank you all again for hanging out with me in this 100-degree Texas weather. There's not a tree around this 22 range, and it's hot. So yeah, I've got some other stuff coming out, a wind video and some barrels that I want to review that a buddy of mine made for me. And so we've got a lot more coming. Thanks for sticking with me and all the subscriptions and the likes. I really, really appreciate it, everyone. And until next time, shoot straight.